Hello and welcome to Bird Barrier. I'm at Pro Lab Studios here at the headquarters of Bird Barrier. My name is Michael Gallion. I do business development for Bird Barrier, and today we're going to talk about a concept that has been emerging called recurring revenue in bird control. Now, let me explain what I mean by recurring revenue. If we look at pest control professionals, PMPs, the whole structure of pest control, especially for residential, is built on the idea that you get a general pest account contract set up, and it's a fixed monthly fee, and it can vary greatly, but that concept of that, not only do you take care of the problem, but you're on a regular rotation to maintain and prevent things from growing. Now, the reason why we want to develop this in bird control is that first of all, there are so many people that do bird control that relate to the pest control industry. It's not just facility managers and direct owners of buildings that do their own bird work, but most of the bird work that is done in the industry is done by PMPs who set up contracts in this structure. The residential model for so many businesses, and I'm going to use an example like an alarm company, for example. Alarm companies, they get you set up with a system. Many times they'll pay for the system to be installed in a home, but it's all about guaranteeing that the customer then has a minimal 1 year, 2 year, 3 year contract. And by having a monthly fee that is manageable for the homeowner, they're willing to spend the money that it would take to, secure a system, but not have this big outlay of cost. Now, that's not always the case with pest contracts. For example, if there is a restaurant that's fully infested with roaches, there's going to be a first-time charge to go in and reset that whole situation, clean it up, get rid of isolate the problems, basically put out the fire once and for all and reset the situation to get rid of all the roaches and all of their infestations. So let's think about that in terms of birds. Is it even possible? This is sort of a dream situation after talking several years with owners of pest control companies and the national pest control companies. This is the whole model that they're built on, is to have this recurring revenue, set up the contracts. Generally, people use a credit card and just pay for a monthly fee. So that is, not only is it possible, but it's now going on in a regular situation each year. And this is basically born out of modern bird control, and it's revolving around optical gel and its flexibility as being kind of the basis that led us to this point here. So this is a really intriguing concept, and I'm going to just give you the basic components. Now, we have, at Bird Barrier, we have additional training. We actually have a training module that's specifically for the recurring revenue that has to do with optical gel, and you should sign up for that. We have pre-recorded versions of that where we talk about business models specifically on how those work. But I'm going to just tell you the basic components here today on this podcast to give you an idea, get you thinking about how this is even possible, and then take it to the next step in the future. So many times with residential, there will be a severe bird problem. I'm going to use solar panels since it's so common, right? Solar panels, man, what a great tool to create bird opportunities. I call them, pigeon coops that collect electricity, because that in our world is a more accurate description. Solar panels get installed on the roof of a house. The solar company, that's all their job is, get that thing producing electricity, and it pays for itself, and there's a return on investment with that. It doesn't take long, especially in the Southwest United States, for pigeons to start nesting under and create a whole colony, a whole flock of offspring. And next thing you know, you've got a real problem. You've got the health issues, you've got birds with their droppings all over the house. Then you also have damage that is going to occur to the solar panels that the homeowner does not realize they are responsible for. They are many times leasing the solar panels. And any damage that occurs in the several years of use is going to be their responsibility. And if there's enough damage and to the underside and the whole structure, they'll have to pay for that damage. They don't realize it in advance. This is why solar panel exclusion is critical in using the proper materials, because you can also void the warranty by not using the right materials. So we train that in all of our certification as far as how to properly protect warranties on solar panels. But the point is this: the average price is around $1,500 to the end consumer. That's a lot of money to the end user to put out for something they weren't expecting. Now they have to exclude the birds, they have to clean up the situation. But that's just part of the problem, right? So we exclude the birds, but they still hang around the house. Maybe the next door neighbors have solar panels and they haven't treated their house. There are neighbors across the street. Well, the better model might be to come in as part of an overall yearly or 2-year or 3-year plan, where for a fixed price that's lower, instead of $1,500, perhaps $1,000 or maybe even less than $1,000, do the exclusion along with an agreement that for $79, $89 a month, something like that, that you continue to come out and eventually eradicate birds completely from that home using supplemental methods. Now, optical gel is a great combination with the solar panel exclusion. So we see there that the end customer, the result is that they get their problem solved with the solar panel. Then after that, each month for a fixed fee of $79 or whatever it may be, we can then continue to address where the birds have moved to, where they continue to linger around that property, and simply use optical gel on those spots to move them completely off the property. After a year's time, the customer is really happy. But the other part of this, you might ask, well, why would the customer continue to pay? Well, once they have experienced this, nightmare of having birds constantly crapping all over their patio and their pool area and the front porch and the driveways and all these parts of their homes, they are wary of the return of birds. They are wary of dealing with the problem, and they don't mind paying a recurring revenue fee to ensure that not only are the birds gone, but they never come back. And especially in the solar panel situation, there's so much consequence from neighbors not dealing with their problem properly. And eventually, what we see happen with this model alone, you get the word of mouth, right? So we see this one home that has solved the birds properly, and not only solved them this one time, but they've also continued to do treatments that really keep that home free of birds. The neighbors love that. The ones that have invested in solar panels, they realize there's nothing else they can really do. They have to solve that problem, otherwise they're going to be living with these birds. And it's rare that anyone just throws their hands up in the air and says, oh, well, I'm just going to allow birds to infest my solar panels. It doesn't work that way. So that's one example. Another example is with woodpeckers. Back 5-10 years ago, there wasn't a lot of money to be made with woodpeckers because, first of all, the customer has a low threshold in terms of what they would spend on this problem. The solutions have been not very effective. Well, here with optical gel, we go in and we use that with a combination deterrent of intimidators, which are flasher devices that go with the optical gel, and we can put out the fire right away, the fire of woodpeckers that are infesting and causing damage on a home or a business. But after the initial treatment, we can then create a recurring revenue model that the customer really does want. Even though you may think in your mind that the customer doesn't see value in this, we've learned otherwise. Customers love the idea of solving birds and then having a simple recurring method of maintenance to prevent anything from coming back, especially with woodpeckers where they have to invest in the repairs of the structure. And it usually involves a contractor who has to then repair the holes, paint the finish, bring it back, and then how often do you see it? After the repairs are done, woodpeckers come back. And now they have the whole process again. And I can tell you personally from my experience in this business that woodpecker customers are some of the most motivated to solve the problem. Even if it's not damage to the structure, we see woodpeckers will do sounding. This is a method where the birds use hollow cavities to make a lot of noise, and that is so disruptive. At first it seems cool, right? It's a natural thing. Hey, we got woodpeckers at our home, and it's kind of cool in the first, maybe day or two, but within weeks later, the customer is so fed up, neighbors are fed up, they don't know what to do. This creates opportunities. The same thing applies to commercial accounts. Maybe you have a warehouse that has a really bad infestation situation, and instead of spending $30,000 or $40,000 to do a full netting and all of this expensive step to get rid of the birds, it may be much more appealing to your customer to come out and isolate areas of nesting at a lower cost. Maybe you spend $5,000 or $10,000 to put out the fire, but then for an additional $1,000 or $2,000 per year for the next 2 years, you do recurring revenue treatments using optical gel, but also there are other methods. It's not just isolated to optical gel, but what we're starting to see is the idea of breaking bird work down into much more financially manageable amounts. It's much more easy on the budget to break things down. But certainly in residential bird control, we're seeing opportunities for customers to have just a lower initial, treatment for whatever the main problem is, and then have a monthly fee. Now, this really works well for PMPs. This is the business model that pest control is built on, and many other functions of home ownership, having monthly fees. At the end of the year, you can add up those monthly fees, and you're going to see that you're going to make good profit, and you're going to be able to service the customer in a way that really helps their budget, but also brings in good, reliable revenue. In the same way that we build our foundation of customers for pest control, we can start introducing this idea for bird control, and we see this as a potential in the future. 5 to 10 years from now, I believe that this will be very common for residential bird control to be done in recurring revenue models because of the use of multisensory technology that is so simple to use through optical gel. We're not going to go into much more detail about this right now because, again, we don't have enough time to go into each business model on each bird, but we do have specific models that we've created for each bird species depending on each situation. So you want to stay tuned for that. Again, my name is Michael Gallion. I do business development for Bird Barrier. If there are ideas that have come from this conversation right here that you have questions on, please put it in the chat below, wherever you're watching this, whatever method you're using to listen to this today. We want to get your feedback. So contact us Let us know if you have other ideas for podcasts. Let us know what are the things that you need to know in order to be better at bird control. That's what modern bird control is all about. Thanks for listening, and we will see you at the next podcast.